Allen squeeze her in as it ends the blocker on third down. Williams, expectations are so high. There's no way for them to meet the expectations to start the season. From the 45, Williams, we said, okay, we can't get any better than that. Sure enough, he turns right back around and he's saying, we beat DJ Moore. Taylor Williams on fourth down, going deep.
Hello and welcome, everybody. That is the good that you will see from last week's game, and that's about it. Figured I'd just start it off on the positive. Why not? Because the Bears went in there and just laid another egg. Not that it's not expected, but I mean 20-0 at halftime. And I heard the Lions beat reporter on ESPN 1000 on my little drive before the show talking about how when the Lions went into the locker room at halftime, how Ben Johnson was chewing out some of the offense for their lack of execution in the game plan. He was pissed that they got 2 field goals on 2 drives, and he was pretty upset about their red zone percentage going into the half at 20-0. And so, you know, Caleb had a good game. Despite all odds, this kid keeps continuing to just drag this corpse, you know, through the rest of the season. And even though, like, you know, I voiced my opinion that I don't think it's worth having him out there, he did once again have a pretty good game. You know, 3 fumbles though, 2 of them lost. Meanwhile, Detroit just happens to fake a fumble and just bite you. Dave, how you doing this week, man?
I'm good, dude. It's Christmas. You know, I'm not letting the Bears ruin my Christmas.
Isn't it crazy? It's set up to do so. There's literally a game right before, and we turn right back around on Thursday. And man, this is
it almost
probably
It almost would have sucked, man, if we were, you know, kind of in a playoff race, and it would have been disappointing. It would have like ruined some feelings. But I mean, I'm okay. I'm ready for the next season. I'm sure you are too. Just kind of seeing. I think we're both in off-season mode almost.
Yeah, you know, I did want to shoot a topic your way that Courtney Cronin came out with some stats a couple days ago, and it got me so pissed off reading them that I found J2K to come on with me, and we sat there and just bullshit about it, right? But I just want to run these down for you real quick. So since the bye week, since week 7, the Bears defense, 32nd in total QBR allowed, 32nd in yards after the catch allowed, 32nd in yards per completion allowed, 31st in quarterback's time to throw from the pocket per pass, 31st in first downs allowed, 31st in yards per drive, 31st in drives that result in points, 30th in pass rush win rate. We're talking about a bottom 2 defense since week 7.
I want to be like I'm going to try to be realistic reacting to it, right? Matt Eberflus was never really the problem on defense, right? So he did a decent job with defense. Secondly, I think we've all known for a while this was never really going to be a good pass rush. And then the other part of that, I guess I'm just reacting to those stats on the fly, but I think my biggest thing with that is I saw a lot of like Tremaine Edmonds hate this weekend and just kind of hating on him because he didn't play very hard. There's such a difference of these players playing and competing in playoff games or games that would be relevant to the playoffs as this, which is, you know, we talked about it last week. It's like a self-preservation mode. It's we got to play the game. We got to make tackles. I get the devil's advocate side of that argument, which is, hey, like if you're not a tone setter on defense, then of course you're going to be losers. And so I get that part. I think if this team was like 8-4 and competing for a playoff spot or something, I think you'd see a lot more players that you might be like 50-50 on or a little bit more on the fence with playing harder. So
yeah, you know, you mentioned it during the offseason where you said defenses aren't consistent. Year to year, you can have the same group of guys and go from a top 10 defense to a middle of the pack defense pretty easily. But when it falls this far, right, it's more than just inconsistency. There's a lot of lack of effort out there. There's a lot of lack of talent and a lack of effort. And it's a combination of that along with bad coaching and bad schemes and, you know, some terrible close losses. These guys, I mean, can't give them much reason to keep trying, right? So it just is what it is. But I thought it was very damning, and I think it really tells the story of the season because, 4-2, and here we go.
Here's the thing
Nine
too, is
straight
like I'm
losses.
watching the draft order at this point, right? We're in the tankathon season, and I'm watching these teams, and I'm looking at the top. Yeah, flex things.
We're not about to talk about the Seahawks game here, man.
Yeah, we're not coming in here.
It's
Being
not
like,
where this is
what are the
going.
positives to gain? No, it's all just Daniel Jeffries with the last comment just nailed it on the head. It's just let's just get this over with already. I forgot where I was going with this. It's more of a thing
Draft
of
order.
yeah, draft order and tankathon. There's different types of teams and why they try hard or they play well. Like look at the Panthers right now. They're playing hard and they're winning against like decent average teams. They just beat the Cardinals and they're doing well because they really don't have anything to gain from losing or being bad. It's the core is there, the young core is there. They're only going to get better. They can only practice. The coach just got hired, and there's a positive to be gained from playing hard. This is a team that, and I looked at that draft order right now. I think it was Giants, Patriots, Raiders, Titans, Jaguars. It's one of the worst draft orders that we've seen in a really long time because there's like a log jam at 4 wins. Last year, 4 wins got you the second overall pick. 4 wins was the Commanders, and they were second overall. So it's a log jam at the bottom right now. And the Bears, to me, are the worst team in terms of why the end of this season matters. It's all guys that on your team, the guys that you free agency acquired are guys that, like Tremaine Edmonds, I get it. He's been playing like shit. But that's a guy that, for one reason or the other, he's going to look at Buffalo and be like, I just left that situation to come here. What the fuck am I doing here? The other part of it is that he's been on good teams and he knows what it looks like. And he's like, why would I sacrifice my body? The Bears are just in the worst position where if this was a young team with a bunch of young players, they'd be playing hard, getting their reps, because the few players that are doing really, really well on the Bears is Caleb, Rome, some of the younger offensive linemen, I suppose, right? Or some of the younger defensive players like Kyler Gordon.
There's a third
minus
part
Cole Kmet, by the way.
There's a third part to that, though, too, David. And it's the fact that the defensive line is so bad that now you're putting more on the linebackers.
Yeah.
Right? So at some point, you just get sick of it. Right? I mean, you're getting gashed right up front. They're not doing you any favors either. So, man, it is what it is.
Yeah, and that's why I like the Bears right now. It is, like Daniel said, it is the 100%. Just let's get this season over with because that's what the players and the coaches are thinking too. Because most of the coaches know that they won't be there. Most of the players know that either if I'm young, I'll be there. If I'm old, I'll probably either get scrapped or depending on which coaching staff comes in, like I might not be here or I might get traded. So I understand it. It's just one of the worst. It's one of the worst situations in the NFL right now, just because I don't think that they're like beyond saving next year. I think going into next year, they're still one of the best looking rosters. It's just a waste of time to end this year.
It's crazy to me because that's the hard part. It's you have a lot of draft capital invested in that defense. A lot of young players, right? So you can't just pull the plug on some of these guys without it being, without it affecting you pretty badly. Like Tyreek Stevenson's a name. Tyreek Stevenson's on this team next year. Yep. Situationally, you know what I mean? Because what are you going to do? You drafted the kid second round, still pretty early on. Like, I'm not saying maybe he'll get the same amount of play time that he's gotten this year, but he is on this roster next year. So you're kind of stuck with some of these guys, and it's crappy because you're also left in a state where you're wondering like, okay, so how much of it is lack of effort versus lack of talent? At some point it is hard to tell the difference between the two. So as a new coach comes in here and gets these guys to play at max effort, is this team more talented than we think it is? I mean, I don't think this is a bottom 2 defense, David. But they are. You are what you are, right? So that's the tricky part right now in my mind is being left in this state of kind of confusion, like in this gray area where, I know we're sucking, but I don't know what to do moving forward, because if you go down that route, there's just too many holes to fill still.
Yes. Long answer, short answer, yes. Short answer to your long question. Yes. It is a problem with the coordinator. It's a problem with the players. Here's the thing I really need people to understand. And watching this, we talk to each other through text about that game. And the more we watch Bears games, the more we're thinking we need Vrabel. Because defense and a lot of football that I watched this weekend, because I have a lot of fantasy implications going on. I watched like almost every game this weekend. I noticed that the good teams have players that I cannot name on defense. We were talking about like Pittsburgh. They have a few notable names, but like teams like, Buffalo, Washington, Seattle, Tampa Bay, like playoff contending teams, Denver, I cannot name a majority of their defensive players. And the issue there is that we know these players really, really well because we are on the Bears and we watch the Bears, and we think that they are better than they are. And it comes down to a coaching schematics type of issue and an effort type of issue. Defense is all effort. And we said this going into last year. Defense is so fickle because it just comes down to effort. And so I'm not really worried about this team going forward on defense, because I think that there's tons of talent there. But is it just going to end up being the right scheme, the right thing? It is a bottom two defense right now, but I expect it to be. They just don't care, and I don't blame them. Like, this team is a dumpster fire right now. It is the worst. Like, I'm looking at the draft order right now. At least the Giants. The Giants on defense have like some young pieces that really play hard and they play decent. They're going to be the first pick in the draft. Patriots, same thing. Young team, trying to work hard. I'd rather be the Bears than Jacksonville at this point. They have the third overall pick. Tennessee, Cleveland, Las Vegas, Carolina, the Jets. There's a couple teams that are ahead of us in the draft that I'd still rather be the Bears than them. But the list gets shorter and shorter. And with the defense, like, I don't know, even a top 15 to top 10 defense next year still gets the job done. I'm not so worried about those stats. I'm just really not, because I think that right now and what we're watching against Detroit, like, I just knew that Caleb was going to get garbage time points because Detroit was going to score because they're actually trying to win. And then the Bears get to respond and then just do this little shootout thing. And I just don't worry about these stats right now. Everything right now, we said this at the beginning of the year because we didn't really expect much. Everything this year is about eye test. At this point, with we've been doing this since 3 weeks ago, 6 games left. Everything was eye test. And right now, everything is eye test. I mean, putting good things on film is what Keenan Allen said. We got to put good things on film. Keenan Allen sounds like he's auditioning for a new job. So I'm just not that worried. There's like only 2 games left, and at this point, I'm just watching for young players.
So with that being said, come draft time, what is your focus? I mean, obviously, you've poured a lot into the offense by drafting a quarterback at pick 1. You have a top 10 pick right tackle. You have a top 10 pick wide receiver. I mean, you got to get this line right, period. And it looks like the chatter is that they're not going to sign Tevin Jenkins, that they're most likely going to let him move on. But can you replace 4 out of 5 linemen and feel good about that going forward? I mean, if anything, you need to probably overpay him just for consistency's sake, in my opinion. Like, at this point, he's got leverage on you, and you're going to let him walk because you're going to be cheap. But he deserves to have that leverage.
So, and I have 2 questions for you, because I feel like going into this week, we just didn't have much to talk about as a show. And we talked about this beforehand. It's just as an episode, like, I don't know what to talk about anymore, because the Vrabel situation is very sensible and logical, but it's upper management that's the trump card in this whole coaching search. But I'm scared that the media will choose Ben Johnson to save the GM. Daniel, I think anybody who is fighting for Ryan Poles right now is fighting a losing uphill battle. I think Ryan Poles, that was kind of going to be my response to that is right now, Ryan Poles has suffered the most out of these last 6 games to end the season, more than anyone in the Bears franchise and the Bears organization. There's nobody who has been like you want to talk about like Tremaine Edmonds has had a bad few games, like Keenan Allen's looked bad, DJ Moore's looked bad. There's no one that looks worse right now in the last like 6 games than Ryan Poles. Ryan Poles, even mid-season, was still kind of like, maybe he can be saved, maybe he can be salvageable. Ryan Poles in the last 6 weeks, his approval rating, if we're talking about pure approval rating, has probably gone from like 100 at the beginning of the year to like 50. He's down to like 10. I don't think anybody's really concerned about Ryan Poles. It's kind of staggering. I don't think he's that bad. I think he's still a middle of the pack GM, but fuck him. Like, honestly, I don't have any sympathy for him. Like, he's been doing a really bad job. So I'm glad it's kind of come to light. I really, really want to like find some clips of me shitting on him at the beginning of the year and just throw him back out there.
I have him. And, when you first said it, I was taken back a little bit because I've always been a Ryan Poles guy, right? And it's one of those things that over time you have convinced me on because as much as I want to like him, all I really like is his draft approach. And even that, it's a results-based business. I like the approach, but the results are the results. And it hasn't worked out. Your third-round picks are terrible. Terrible, right? Like, you passed up Jalen Carter for Darnell Wright. I'm not sure if that was the right move. You drafted, a couple defensive backs. One of them, Tyreek Stevenson, has literally was the straw that broke the camel's back this year. But even before that Washington game, David, you pointed out, you're like, Tyreek Stevenson is not having a good year. 3-4 games in, you said this to me. And so it's not, even with last game, dropping that pick 6, like, come on, man. Like, you either do or you don't. You don't get to just keep getting chances.
I remember the first text that you sent me after we drafted Tyreek Stevenson, and I watched his highlight videos, and I was like, this guy's going to suck. His hips are terrible. He's a straight line, up and down cornerback. He has no change of direction, even in college, even in Florida. I remember watching his, like, college tapes, and I remember you asked me, like, what do you think of this draft pick? I thought he sucked.
He's a hard hitter. I'll give him credit there.
That's fine.
He's made some good run stops, and then his rookie year having those 4 interceptions kind of gave you some false hope.
Right. But I initially when you asked me like what do I think of Tyree Stevenson getting drafted, I thought he sucked. I looked at his college game tape, and I was just like, this guy has no hip flexibility, no hip mobility. He can't change directions to save his life, and that's kind of what his detriment has been in the last few years in the NFL. Is like anytime they put him in the slot or put him on like an angle route and he has to change directions, he gets fucking absolutely annihilated. What is left to salvage with this season? And I have like 2 questions for you. I don't even look at Ryan Poles as the future GM. I really don't. I would be so shocked if you could get anything for Tyreek Stevenson, Daniel. I'd be so shocked. I think you get like maybe a 5th round pick.
You're selling low.
Yeah, you're selling low. You might get a 5th or a 7th or something. You can't even say that. My question is formulated from the GM's perspective, but like you can't even do that. 2 things. I had an observation going into this year, and we are pretty steadfast. I feel like me and you could write a book or like write a manifesto, right, about what our tenets of football are. And like you could ask us about every category, and me and you would kind of be just like, nope. That's always a bad idea. That's always a good idea. That's always a bad idea. That's always a good idea.
I have my preferences for sure. Pretty
right, and I think me and you are pretty consistent with them. And what do we always say about quarterbacks in a draft in terms of like where one gets drafted versus where they end up being like the best out of their class?
The first guy's a shot, but I mean, oftentimes you still like Patrick Mahomes was what, the 4th? That's taking quarterback?
Third.
Yeah, 3rd. So you can still get him. Typically, you need to get him in the 1st round, though. You know what I mean? But even the pick 1 quarterback is still like a 50-50 shot.
So that was kind of my observation. I still think Caleb's really, really good. I think a little bit of his I'm starting to get a little bit more realistic with it. Caleb, more than ever, more than any quarterback I've seen since like Mitch or Kyle Orton. When I watch him in his drop back, before he even throws the ball, I can tell when he sees something he likes versus when he's going to make a mistake or just throw the ball away. Like, I could tell you at the top of his drop back when he's about to scramble or panic or deliver a dot. And that might be more of a future problem. That might be a scheme problem. That might be a play calling problem. Like, I can just see it there going forward. What I'm getting at with this is that I think Caleb is still has the potential to be the best quarterback in his class, but I'm less and less confident in that statement moving forward. I don't think he's bad by any means, but the Jaden Daniels, Drake May, JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix thing, I mean, they're all so close right now that I'm not a hater on Caleb yet. I think with the right coaching, he's still going to be the best in his class. But right now, I'm just a little bit less up on Caleb.
Yeah, the thing about grooming a quarterback, David, and the way the reason why ruining this first year is very detrimental is because there's so much to learn, so many details, right? Like it comes down to fine details. You probably spend most of your career learning and learning more and more and more, right? So early on, you got to get that right. One of the things I noticed early on, and I told you this during the preseason, was, they didn't use cadence in college. Clap and get the ball. And although they practice it or whatever, guys use it as a weapon in this league. Like that's what I mean. You could write a whole study on just cadences alone and how to use them as a weapon in this league. Caleb is nowhere near there. When I'm putting film together, I literally watch it and I could stop and I know the ball's about to be snapped. Right? Like I've just seen enough, put enough film to where it's just, you could tell there's still a rhythm to it. There's still more lately, it's actually gotten a little bit better, but there's just, it's obvious. And for a pass rusher where these guys study your tendencies, there's a lot of tendencies and things that Caleb's still doing that kind of, hurts him, but you can't work on those things when there's so much chaos all around you. You're still trying to just get the chaos to a stable level before you could even focus on any kind of details, right? The thing that does make me happy about Caleb is the fact that he hasn't thrown a pick in however many games. Playing safe football goes a long way in this league. And although there's been some near calls and things like that, there's definitely a lot of stuff he could do better too, man. There's a lot of easy completions that are being missed. But like I said, these are all things that are expected from a rookie. You know what I mean? With the situation at hand that's going on around him, with how bad the offensive line is. I mean, David, we had less than 3 yards of carry last game on the ground. Right? So kid's really doing it all on his own. I mean, obviously, the coaching staff didn't do him any justice. Plays weren't even coming in on time throughout the first half of the season, things like that. And so for him to still go out there and showcase what he has is nice. However, that rookie learning curve, we still haven't hit the upswing yet, man. We're still and that's because we're wasted a year doing it.
I say this with like full confidence and potential in Caleb and my belief in Caleb being it's fucking crazy how quickly, like, I say this to my wife all the time, like how quickly ye forget, right? Like how quickly we forget about having good defenses with good receivers, with good running backs and we can't get the quarterback position right. And the only thing we have correct on this team is Caleb Williams, and everything else fucking sucks. And so I say this with the caveat of I have a few things in my head that I want Caleb to work on, like moving forward. I say this like totally as aware of my stupidity. I know that I'm not going to sit here and tell Caleb like what to do and everything, but I can see it, and I think you can too. I mean, the wide 80 set, like it's not great. Like I know it by heart. I can listen to it, like you said. You can see it being snapped by the time it goes. There's a few things that I think in my head, like that Caleb can work on that will significantly improve him. things that are just like a team problem that won't, until the team is better, it will not be better for Caleb. So I say this, you asked me this question like 2 weeks ago. Who's the best player on the Bears right now? And it is definitively, indisputably, it's Caleb Williams. I think there's no one better at football on this team than Caleb Williams. I'm really positive and still up on him, but this goes into my next question, which is what, from like a top-down perspective, okay? I'm not even saying GM. Say you're the GM. Say you're Kevin Warren, you're Ryan Poles, whoever's going to end up having that job. What can you possibly gain for the next 2 games? Because if you're in next year mode and you're not just phoning in the next 2 games, what can you possibly gain from the next 2 games against Seattle and Green Bay?
I know it's not much. First of all, you have to talk expectations. So, like, I expect to lose both those games. You might make Virginia happy if you beat Green Bay, which is lame. Exactly. Which is like, it's not even a real thing, right? So who cares? But really, like, what do you have to gain from that?
Sorry.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
No, honestly, to rephrase that question, and I mentioned this at the beginning, like 10 minutes ago. Me and you have our tenets of football, right?
So what do I have to gain?
So stick to your tenets of football. Pretend you're not Ryan Poles and you're not Kevin Warren. Pretend you're a good GM.
Yes. At this point, I'm treating it more like the preseason, where I'm more willing to give backups more opportunities so I can figure out who on this team is worth keeping around as far as a depth piece. If you're out there slacking, like for example, Tyreek Stevenson, like things like that, I don't care who the name is. You know what I mean? But with that being said, like, I don't want to kill the quarterback either, which is part of my thought process of like, no, you should just sit Caleb. Man, you should be giving other guys opportunities to go out there and play, especially if the defense is this bad and doing as bad of a job. Like, yeah, I'd like to see some depth pieces in there, and I'd treat it more like the preseason at this point, personally.
Yeah, you assume that it's going to be 2 losses and 2 shootouts. Hopefully,
pretty much.
Right? I agree with you. So, like, what is there to gain, right? You're not going to gain much from Caleb. Caleb needs to average 361 yards per game to break the rookie quarterback passing record. Not going to happen. So, like, he already beat all the
I don't
Bears
care about
records.
chasing stats, though. Like,
Me neither. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you need to let Colin Johnson play. Tyler Scott looked absolutely decent compared to what you've put out there before. I don't understand this. I don't understand the logic of this team. I don't understand what's going on. Yeah. Sorry, I'm reading the comments a little bit right now.
Yeah, but you know, the problem with his teammates is this roster is going to be overturned.
Yeah.
So
also, here's the I guess I'm ready to move on to the next conversation topic, which is, and I apologize to anybody in the chat. I would love your interaction and your actual justification reasons. I would honestly like to have you on here and have you explain it over long form. What is it about Ben Johnson that does not feel like everything else you've ever seen the Bears do? Because we talked about this at the beginning of the year and when Matt Eberflus got hired, and how much I hate this repetitious cycle of, well, we had a defensive head coach and now we're looking for an offensive innovator. And now we had this offensive innovator and he made me look really stupid. So now we're going to go with consistency and we're going to get a defensive head coach. Guys, if you want to break the cycle, you want things to be done differently, there is one candidate available this offseason. And he was available last year. And his name is Jim Harbaugh. And you chose to ignore it. And there is one person available that will make you do things differently as a franchise. And watching these Bears teams and watching the just lack of effort and watching the just pathetic attempts of like playing football, there is nothing about Ben Johnson being here that will inspire me to be confident in this team next season other than, well, let's see you prove it. If Ben Johnson proves me wrong, it will be a miracle. because there has been – we're not talking about other NFL teams, guys. We're not talking about seeing things from afar and comparing it to yours. Within your own franchise and your own organization, you've seen this cycle happen before. If Ben Johnson goes to somewhere else, he goes to Cincinnati, he goes to New York, he goes to Las Vegas, and he kills it, I can actually live with that because I am okay with not taking that risk. There is nothing about Ben Johnson that doesn't scream to me Mark Trestman or Matt Nagy 2.0.
So, yeah, and that's part of the thing about having just a first-time head coach here in general. You don't want the Bears top to be able to dictate to the head coach. That's why Mike Vrabel is the guy, because he's done it before, and you got to have somebody that won't allow that, right? And Dave, we've talked about this ad nauseum. You know me, Mike Vrabel is definitely my favorite choice as well. I think based off the guys that are out there, he checks most of the boxes, right? If you want me to play devil's advocate, if you want me to argue the other point for something I don't necessarily believe in, I can still make good points about Ben Johnson. I don't think it's the right way to go. But I'll tell you this: you could build a football team in many different ways, right? The interesting thing about the way the lines are built is you need that type of meathead, strong attitude, locker room presence. It doesn't have to be your head coach. In 2006, we had it here with Olin Kreutz. We had it here with Brian Urlacher. The locker room was self-managed, and that's why Lovie Smith can just be Lovie Smith, right? But what Dan Campbell does for the Lions right now is allows Ben Johnson to be Ben Johnson. Allows him to be a schematics guy, you know what I mean, and offensive guru or whatever, because he doesn't have to worry about the other part of it, right?
Yes.
And I think that's the unknown. I think if we bring Ben Johnson in here, one, we don't have the players in this locker room that hold themselves to any kind of standard. We're seeing that right now, right? Unless Caleb just takes it over completely, but that's even putting more on the kid's shoulders, right? No, this is why Jalen Carter might have actually been good for this team, but whatever. Regardless, I'm worried that Ben Johnson, he'll bring the schematics part with him, sure, but there's still a lot more that goes into a football team than just that. So, man, like I said, checkers before you play chess, right? Can you go in there and have a guy motivate you to bash your head through a wall every single week? Because that's where it starts, right? But beyond the schematics, beyond drawing up cute plays and this and that, it starts with the physicality and the physical part of football. And that's why you said you have these defenses that you don't know these players on. And that's fine. They're motivated. They're putting in a ton of effort, and they're succeeding because they're put in the right positions. It doesn't have to be flashy. It does not have to be flashy on defense, man. And so offensively, too, I don't know. Matt Nagy was very creative. We saw what that went like. He wasn't a good head coach, right? So meanwhile, you had a guy like John Fox come in here who wasn't very creative, who was very experienced. And what happened? Adam Gase got a job for saving Jay Cutler one year. He left behind Vic Fangio, right? So, you have guys under you that wind up getting opportunities and get jobs. And what did Mike Vrabel have? Matt LaFleur, who went off and got a job with – that's
Arthur
what I'm saying.
Smith.
That's what I'm saying. This is a guy that's got it figured out at the top. Dude, if we get to those problems where we have to replace our offensive coordinator because our offense is good, we'll talk about that when we get there. I would love to be having that conversation with you guys right now. I would love to be telling you right now that, oh, no, our offensive coordinator is going to get hired because we kick ass on offense. So, no, we're not there yet, man. We need stability. We need structure. We need strength. We need leadership, experience.
I have a few points to add on to that because I watched some of the Jared Goff interview after the fact with Ben Johnson, and there's nothing to me about Ben Johnson that doesn't scream just adorable offensive play caller. And somebody who can tell me, like, yeah, he's had experience offensive coordinating. Dude, there's offensive coordinators in this league have done it for 5 years straight and just don't leave the head coaching situation because they know they can't do any better. The one thing I heard this weekend, which was absolutely terrifying to me, was Eric Bieniemy being the Bears head coach. And I shit my pants with fear. If that happens, I mean, I'm just out. But Ben Johnson, Jared Goff was in his press conference, and the little stumble Ruski. Did you see that play where Jared Goff faked a fumble and then Jahmyr Gibbs fell down? And then,
there was tape on that against the Packers.
Packers,
okay, right.
Yeah. So Jared Goff came out in his press conference and actively said, Ben Johnson came up to me and said, "Can you actually fumble this ball and make it like a directional fumble?" And that's all I needed to hear. Jared Goff goes, "Well, no, Ben, I can't do that. Like, let's take this back a step. How about I pretend to fumble if you really want to go there?" This is a guy that's just like, he's been given the green light way too hard.
Penei Sewell threw a pass against us last time.
Dude, if you're thinking that, Ben Johnson, here's what you're actually asking Ben Johnson to do. Here's the thing that we're talking about. What's with the demanding terminology? Q plays in a door. I mean, here's the thing about it, and I'll be straight up direct. Anything that Ben Johnson has done, if this was a worse team or a team where these plays failed, you would be absolutely asking for this guy's job. There is a variance in the NFL.
He's in position.
When things go well, they look awesome and genius. And when things go badly, they look horrible and they are a fireable offense.
Dave, backup center.
Things that Ben Johnson does are exactly on that 50% variance aspect, where if these don't work, they look awful and they look like it's a thing that you should call for somebody's job.
Also, it's the timing of it. Backup center, fullback dive. Why was it terrible? One, because it didn't work, fumbled.
Right.
Two, because we needed those points to win that game right there. You're not up 20. You don't have the room and the comfort to be able to play around. If you do, go ahead. Get cute. You know what I mean? Because you have the room to take that risk. But that's a luxury in this league, to be honest with you.
And he's also doing it with the best offensive line in football, the best running back duo in football, the greatest comeback story at quarterback that's happened in the last 10 years, right? Maybe minus Ryan Tannehill. Can you think of a better reclamation project at quarterback than Jared Goff, a guy who was written off in LA and came back, and now he has 33 touchdowns and like 10 interceptions?
Yeah, good for him. But the guy that they traded for him wound up going and getting the Super Bowl. So yeah, he's had more.
That's success. What I'm saying. Like, there's not really many better stories than the Lions, and then they have decent to above average wide receivers. They have one of the best young tight ends in the NFL. He has the luxury of doing this, because this is the thing that people keep expecting Ben Johnson to do, is that Baker Mayfield's a pretty good reclamation project. I'll give you that. But that's my career trajectory for Caleb Williams at this point.
That's a good one, J2K.
Yeah. Jared Goff's up there, though. He's like, it's Baker, it's Jared Goff.
I never expected Jared Goff to get to this point.
Me neither, but that's what I mean. And here's and I respect J2K. So when he asked me that comment, I don't look at it as like a trolling comment in the comment section. What I'm saying is, with the demeaning terminology and the Q plays and adorable, is because what you're actually asking Ben Johnson to do coming into Chicago is take what you have as an offensive coordinator and translate it into a incredibly under-talented roster, but continue to do it. So what has Ben Johnson done in Detroit, minus use the tools that he's been given by everyone else in that franchise? Dan Campbell deserves more credit way before Ben Johnson. The GM deserves way more credit for giving him that offensive line and those players way more than Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson has gotten to use the toys and the tools that have been given to him, and he's using them very creatively. It's kind of fun. But so help me God, if I saw next year a stumble Ruski done by Caleb Williams, I'd fucking shit my pants. Because you're not there yet. You're not there. So what you're asking of Ben Johnson is to take what he's done that makes you fall in love with him as Ben Johnson, being creative, being innovative, being like doing all these trick plays, and do it with a subpar, sub-talented roster and simplify what you've been doing in Detroit, but still make it incredibly effective and game managing. That's not Ben Johnson doing that. That's Dan Campbell. Going for it on fourth down is not Ben Johnson choosing it. Going on these fourth down crazy plays, timing out, playing good defense is not Ben Johnson. The Detroit Lions are not good because of Ben Johnson. It's part of it for sure. But Ben Johnson to me screams offensive play caller, really, really good at that, not head coach. He doesn't scream
exactly. On top of it, you have to put more responsibility on his plate, David. So, like, despite all that, you're also now a head coach. Like, I need your mind and your decision making to actually be more than just play calls. And so I know there's a lot of head coaches out there that do call offensive plays, but the ones that have success have a defensive coordinator that's had head coaching experience, right? Like, they're almost two different sides of the football field and they take care of themselves. Andy Reid's got Steve Spagnuolo on the other side. He doesn't have to worry about that because they could just rely on him, right? We're not there. So, like, the staff you bring in is going to be very important. And then on top of it,
if I need to interrupt there for a second, like, part of that with the Ben Johnson thing too is, and I forget who's talked about this. I think it's Carl, but Ben Johnson does not have that coaching tree and that NFL coaching infrastructure like Mike Vrabel does. Mike Vrabel can find, yes, he has an outdated, overrated, whatever you want to call it, coaching circle, right? Mike Vrabel. But it's guys that have done the job for decades. Josh McDaniels, defensive coordinators. I mean, it's like people say it's like, oh, he's stuck with Josh McDaniels. That's the reports. The guy's offensive coordinator was Matt LaFleur and Arthur Smith. He can identify good, talented offensive coordinator positions. With Ben Johnson being a former college quarterback, being a former whatever, but he has not come from any tree. So unless he full-on poaches Dan Campbell's coaching staff, there's nothing there. He's going to need to pick and choose the rejects from other coaching trees, which the Bears' offensive and head coaching position candidates have done for the last 10 years, and it's never, ever worked. Matt Eberflus has picked the branches of failed coaches in the NFL for 2-3 years. Didn't work. Matt Nagy had to kind of fucking pick and choose the
when
branches.
Matt Nagy
of
had
these
Vic
random...
Fangio, that was his best year.
That was the best thing because it wasn't even a guy related to him. It was a guy who had been established in the NFL for decades, and he did a great job. The moment Matt Nagy had to replace him, he couldn't do it. He doesn't know what a good defensive coordinator looks like other than Vic Fangio.
So that's the thing, man. Mike Vrabel, dude, we were threatened by having Cliff Kingsbury as our offensive coordinator this year.
Yeah.
Why? Because right now he'd be head coach. You're right. That's why you can't do that, because if this team goes down, that man takes your job. Right? And the team goes down anyway, and somebody else takes your job anyway, which is stupid. Why not bring and listen, and I know a lot of people say, oh, I hate Josh McDaniels. I hate Cliff Kingsbury. That's great. You can have your opinion on these guys, but their head coaching careers, you have to be able to separate them from their offensive coordinator careers, because there's two different jobs. I do not like Josh McDaniels as a head coach.
Thank you.
Period. I would not that right out of my mouth. Yeah, I would not be extremely worried about him being an offensive coordinator, though. Like,
McDaniels had two separate opportunities at a head coach position. One was with Tim Tebow in Denver, and one was with the Raiders. And he is an excellent offensive coordinator, which he's demonstrated multiple times in his career. He's had retreads, he's had opportunities, but every single time he's had an offensive court, he has had a head coaching position opportunity, he has absolutely flamed out because for some people, it's just too much.
Right.
And we don't know much about Ben Johnson. And I'm not saying I do. Maybe Ben Johnson will go somewhere and be fantastic, but it's a risk that I'm willing to not take rather than take because of where the Bears are as a franchise and where they are with Kevin Ward and Ryan Poles. Ben Johnson is a luxurious upgrade, or he's a coin flip type of hire. If you're the Raiders and you're just like, I just made a great new franchise with it's in Las Vegas and you get to do whatever the fuck you want. Deion Sanders gets to come in and coach the offense, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, great. Fucking hire whoever you want. This is like the Bears, man. Like, you want to talk about Bears football, bringing it back down to Bears football and respectability and whatever. This is what I said this last week. Give Mike Vrabel a 7 to 10 year contract and let it ride. I know that even if he starts like 8-8 for the next 3 years, at one point you're going to peak at 11, 12 wins and you're going to make the playoffs. And then when you get everything right with Mike Vrabel, he'll take you over the top. Mike Vrabel is in the category to me, and I'm not going to say like, you know, Mike Vrabel's in the category of these guys, but Mike Vrabel's in the category of a Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, right? These guys that, and I went through this list with you, guys who look through the NFL teams, and I forget who it was that made a comment on our video about established NFL coaches and established quarterbacks, and kind of contradicting my point about like, well, these defensive coordinators and these defensive coaches were not necessarily the guys that made the quarterback. Bullshit. Josh Allen started under Sean McDermott. Lamar Jackson started, like, they have established quarterbacks. Well, guess who established them? They're fucking head coaches. John Harbaugh had Lamar Jackson from the jump. Sean McDermott had Josh Allen pretty much from the jump. Like, these are not defensive or special teams coordinator head coaches that were like gifted an established quarterback. They helped cultivate him. There is something to be said about changing the way Caleb Williams plays the game. I don't want Ben Johnson to come in here and say 30 to 40 passes every game because I need my offense run the way it needs to be run, and I need to get all my plays out there and throw out all my talents and my innovation and all that stuff. I'm okay with Caleb Williams throwing 22 to 25 passes a game next year if you have an established running game and a dynamite fucking defense. I want wins, man. I want 8 to 10 wins every year. I don't give a shit how it happens. Cultivate Caleb Williams however the fuck you want. But if you have an opportunity to hire Mike Vrabel and his GM, you take that opportunity, and if it fails, it fails. Because at least you're taking a measured risk. With Ben Johnson, you're just being like, hey, fuck it, man. This is what the media wants me to do. This is what everybody tells me it wants me to do. I can go over this again, but most of our chat and most of the viewers have seen last week's episode. There's next to no evidence that offensive play caller plus young quarterback equals success. It just doesn't mean anything unless they come from a Mike Shanahan or Kyle Shanahan or a Sean McVay tree. It's very rare that ever works out. You just need good established NFL head coaching and good game scenarios.
You know, and I like this comment. I don't mind Vrabel, but he feels like a the locker room right type of guy, not the next brilliant mind like McVay or O'Connell. And I get that. And the thing where I'm looking at this team from is I do feel there's talent on this team. Right? And if you listen, these schematics guys, like you said, you have all these no names on these defenses. That's great. You can do that. But at the end of the day, dude, it's I kind of lost my get the locker room right kind of guy. That's what we need. We need to get the locker room right. We need to create a floor of stability. And I think if we do that, we stop asking the talent to overcome every single possible obstacle, right? Because right now they're playing an uphill battle, left and right. Everything's going wrong around them. Like I said, first half of the season, you're not even getting plays in on time. Keenan Allen said against the Packers, Caleb came in and had to just look at his wristband and take his best shot because only half the play came in before the mics were cut off. at 15 seconds, right? So you're not even doing the fundamental stuff. You're asking all these guys to just do it. And if you just at least create a floor of stability, I think there is enough talent to be able to win you games. You just got to let that talent shine. And we talk about, all these great coaches, and I'll bring up Andy Reid over and over. 20 years to win his first Super Bowl. During that span, he was a great coach. Everybody knew he was a great coach. It wasn't until he got Patrick Mahomes that he won the Super Bowl. The talent is what will do it at the end of the day for you, right? You could be the greatest coach out there. You're still not playing the game. So at this point, I do feel that we are set up in a way where we could still compete against some of these other teams and whatnot, but we can't ask them to do everything on their own. And you get a guy in here that's creative and schematic, and if it goes bad quick, oh, that's a snowball effect. That's hard to bounce back from. What the stability, the consistency thing, it might not be the prettiest thing. And I'm not saying Vrabel is this genius-minded coach. He's not. He's not the greatest head coach in the league. But I think we don't need the greatest head coach in the league right now.
No.
We just need stability, something consistent, stable, respectful, and legitimate. You know what I mean? Kevin O'Connell's done an amazing job. I'm not same thing with Matt LaFleur. And David, I was actually going to bring these two teams up. We talk about a rebuild here. It's lasted 3 years. Dude, the Packers are the youngest team in the league.
Yeah.
They're done. They're going through their rebuild. Nobody says that word about them, period. The Vikings are doing it all with a backup quarterback. They drafted a quarterback in the first round, got hurt, didn't skip a beat. So, those two coaches there are doing a phenomenal job. And, it's great, but we're not anywhere near that, man. And we've broken so much to where you have to fix a lot. And effort's huge right now. These guys are not putting in effort. Like I said, you need a guy that's going to come in here and motivate people to bash their heads through a wall week in and week out. And that's where it starts. And if you do that, then you'll allow the opportunity for a creative offensive coordinator to come in here and maybe get cute. But I don't need that at the head coaching level. I really don't.
And that's kind of my next point, man, is you have talent already. It's about a guy that knows how to use it. It's about a guy that knows what the NFL looks like. When you had Vrabel in Tennessee, he had A.J. Brown and he had Derrick Henry. And how did that offense look like every single week? It was Derrick Henry and it was A.J. Brown. He didn't mince words. He didn't fucking try to get creative or cute or, call running plays to his right tackle or whatever, or throwing plays.
Ryan Tannehill was on the second team.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. And,
right.
And this is one of those luxurious things that I don't understand what this Bears fan, you're hoping for a home run and something that you don't really know is a known commodity, and acting like Ben Johnson is a known commodity is crazy. Ben Johnson is much less of a known commodity than Mike Vrabel. If you want to raise your floor, you want to change the outlook of your team, you got to go with something like Mike Vrabel rather than a Ben Johnson. It's fine if you want to take that risk, but if you're cool with being 2-10 for the next 5 years, and here's where the logistics come in, because me and you always look at the logistics and the math and everything like that. If you hire Ben Johnson at $15 to $20 million a year, he's taking a minimum 5-year contract. If Ben Johnson sucks by year 1, you're stuck for 4 more years because you're a McCaskey. You think George McCaskey is getting rid of $15 million a year for 5 years and just eating that shit? You're stuck as one of the worst franchises in the NFL. The risk is not worth the reward. I don't really know what to say with that. It's so huge. Whereas with Mike Vrabel, I can guarantee you're going to be somewhere within the competitive range in the NFC North. And this is the other thing, and we mentioned this last week. You are in the middle of the peak of the NFC North. The Vikings are about to get possibly the first seed after they were being considered as the worst team in the NFC North. The Packers are the middle class of the NFC North. And they're 10-4 for fuck's sake.
And they're dangerous, man. They are a dangerous
team. You're telling Ben Johnson, Ben, you need to come in here, reinvigorate, renovate the Bears as a franchise, be the offensive play caller, fix Caleb Williams, help us draft new people, and be like stare everybody in the face and not blink once. That's just not realistic. Mike Vrabel is the only guy that is not scared of these NFC North teams.
You know, who else he's not scared of? The McCaskies. I remember you said one thing about Bill Belichick. You're like, man, if we got Bill Belichick here, you're like the first time George McCaskey walked into his office and said anything, Bill would probably be like, get the fuck out and don't ever come back again.
Yeah.
You can't have a guy who's, I don't know, who's just not established in his ways. That's such a gamble. And you already took the gamble when you draft Caleb number 1. That is your gamble. You don't have to gamble more. You know what I mean? You have to make that work in the best way possible. And you've already ruined a year doing it, right? To come in here and get an unknown commodity, like you said, or more of an unknown commodity, and take a bigger risk, you can't ruin another year. You don't have that luxury. You really don't. And man, it is based off who's available, in my opinion. That is just the best pick. And 9-8 forever. 9-8 forever. That sounds like the Steelers to me. And who's got the most Super Bowls in this league? The Steelers, because that's fine. And J2K, you even made a case for wanting to make the playoffs year after year. Take the risk on the young play caller. Listen, the Rams have a Super Bowl with Sean McVay, but like same thing. Like, Kyle Shanahan's a great coach. He's a great play caller. He still hasn't won one. Listen, he's made Brock Purdy. He's made Brock Purdy look real good. That's fine. That's great. Sean McVay's the guy that went in there and actually did get one. I get it, but man, he's like a 1 in a million thing. He was the youngest head coach to ever get a job. Everybody knew that this guy's good. You know what I mean? And I'm not sure if Ben Johnson's that. Same thing with Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan did it on multiple different teams. He's literally there's a coaching tree that stems under him and Sean McVay that everybody's trying to pick off of. Ben Johnson's really just done it here on the Lions. And he's done it with Dan Campbell. And like I said, Dan Campbell's such a meathead rah-rah guy that he's got that part completely covered. We don't know if Ben Johnson can sit there and hold the locker room together. I definitely know we don't have the players that will hold themselves accountable in a locker room to a certain standard. That is part of what we need right now. And unfortunately, you have to get that and not maybe get that. That has to be a definite thing. Like, you need somebody to come in here and just lay down the law and enforce it, honestly. And yeah, like I said, based off who's out there and who's available, Mike Vrabel checks most of the boxes. Is he the perfect candidate? No. Is he going to be the greatest offensive scheme? No. But what he is a head coach in the NFL. I know that.
This is an older comment that J2K put in there. It was just Vrabel seems like a John Fox retread or like maybe a Matt Nagy retread. Dude, we've seen overly talented teams with shitty head coaches in this town. Again, I gotta keep emphasizing this. I don't want to talk about teams comparatively. I don't want to talk about like if we're Minnesota. Here's the thing about hiring coaches as like a team like Minnesota or Green Bay or whatever. Institutionally, they know what the fuck they're looking for. When they hire Kevin O'Connell, they know what a good head coach looks like and what a bad head coach looks like. They've been in the playoffs for fucking 20 years straight. Minnesota is always competing. Green Bay is always competing. San Francisco is always competing. There's no one. I am going to stand by that. There's no one in the Bears front office that knows what a good head coach looks like or what a buffoon head coach looks like. They've been fooled by all of them in between. Mark Trestman had Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall, Matt Forte, Jay Cutler.
Top 5 offense.
Fuck to do with them. Didn't know what the fuck to do with it. You don't know what you're looking for. So here's the other part of it, which is like, if Ben Johnson comes into Chicago and he could literally toss out a bunch of fucking gobbledygook word salad at George and Kevin, and they'd be like, sounds like a genius to me, and they would not know the difference. And that's my issue with it. I'm talking about macro level stuff. We as fans, we as people who observe the NFL, feel like we know what we're talking about and feel like we know what a good head coaching candidate looks like. And maybe J2K is right. And maybe Ben Johnson's great. I don't know that because I haven't seen or interviewed a Ben Johnson versus a Kevin O'Connell versus a Matt LaFleur. If I had interviewed these guys and then one of them walked out on me, I'd be like, that's what I got to look for next time. If I interviewed Kevin O'Connell and he walked out on me, I'd be like, damn, I fucked up. Next time, I'm looking for that. The Bears have no fucking clue. But what I know and what they would know is Kevin Warren and George McCaskey right now have a golden opportunity to say, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but I do know that Mike Vrabel does. And Mike Vrabel can come in and restructure this and reorganize this to a point that is respectable. Because every time the Bears have kind of come in and been like, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to look for a new whiz kid, a new genius. They get absolutely bamboozled by a moron.
Because you need to play checkers.
What the fuck they're talking about.
You need to play checkers before you're allowed to play chess. Like I said, it's like with these cute plays and everything. It's the timing of them. Yeah, the Lions have created a situation to where you can get cute. You can play chess, right? What we need right now is just to get to a respectable level. And what I'm saying is, like, we've lost 9 straight. We're 4-2. We're 4-11. Even the Cowboys, with no hope, have won the last 4 out of their 5, I believe. Right? Because, dude, you can't do it this way. And the thing with Mike Vrabel too is, like, I know for sure. I mean, dude, what we're talking about the last 25, 30 years, he's been in football. So, like, Prometheus asks, who's his offensive and defensive coordinator? No, dude, I can't give you that answer. But I do know one thing. The man's been in the NFL for the last 30 years, right? So, like, you have connections. You know people. You talk to people. You have your guys. And you'll figure it out and you'll work with it and you'll find somebody to come in and run your philosophy and your game plan and be on board and on the same page as you. What we're doing with, like, Ben Johnson, I want to know, okay, what kind of defense are you running? It's cute. Great. You can scheme up offense. That's nice. Do you have a established team philosophy? Because now you're doing the same thing when you're going to get a defensive coordinator and you're going to completely lean on him. Okay, you take care of the defensive side of the football because I'm already calling offensive plays on top of being a head coach, right? And so once again, you're not taking the full responsibility of being a head coach, right? I know Mike Vrabel won't call his own offensive plays, and he won't call his own defensive plays. He'll get 2 guys that are on the same page of what he wants to do that job so he can focus on being a head coach, which is what I want. I want an established head coach. You know what I mean? So, man, when you find these guys, I sit there and I'm really jealous of, like, Dom Capers, Dick LeBeau, these guys that were just defensive coordinators on one team for years and years and years. I wished Vic Fangio would have done that for us. The second he came in here, I was like, please, please, please sign him forever. I know he wants to go make money. I know he wants to be a head coach, but, like, just keep this man forever. And if you had that, I'd be more willing to entertain a guy like Ben Johnson, but we don't. You know, we have a locker room full of guys that are lacking effort, are giving up on the team. We have a situation where you had players chewing out your head coach here after he was here 3 years. We went through coordinator after coordinator after coordinator after coordinator under him. It's just so much inconsistency and no stability whatsoever. It would be so refreshing for these guys to just be on a respectful NFL team. And I'm telling you, there's enough talent here to where if you do that for these guys, that's what you're going to be banking on taking you over top. Not getting cute with play calls, not anything like that. It's going to be the talent, which you got to use it while it's still here, man. Otherwise, you're going to wind up in another rebuild real quick. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to like address this comment too. Like, I'm not making predictions about Johnson, but it seems like you're dragging. First of all, it seems like you're making a lot of predictions about Ben Johnson because you seem like you're predicting him to be the next genius offensive mind in the NFL, which he might be, but I don't know that. And
I don't want to take
really
the chance. I don't want to take the
and
chance.
that's
It's not
second part
about
of that.
him
We're
being
not
good or bad.
dragging him across anything. I just owe nothing. I don't owe Ben Johnson anything. He doesn't deserve any benefit of doubt. And if you think Ben Johnson, by calling plays with one of the best offensive like staffs in the NFL, Ben Johnson deserves no benefit of my doubt. He's not owed anything. I have no idea. Mike Vrabel's track record on quarterbacks, he had Marcus Mariota, who proved to flame out completely everywhere in his career. He rehabilitated Ryan Tannehill completely, and then he was forced with Malik Willis by his new GM that he did not agree with, that also traded A.J. Brown, and then was fired the next year.
And you said it. A GM he did not agree with. We've always gotten yes men. Ryan Poles wanted to trade up for Rome Odunze, and Matt Eberflus was like, yeah. Meanwhile, Mike Vrabel, when they traded A.J. Brown, you showed me that clip, was pissed. And look at what A.J. Brown's done. Right? There's a reason to be mad at that because, God damn it, you got rid of my best player. And so I don't need him to be a yes man. I need him to know what his responsibilities are, what his team is good at, what his team is bad at, and give a proper and fair evaluation. And clearly he's had some issues with GMs that he hasn't seen eye to eye with. He may be really thirsty for an opportunity to go in somewhere, be a head coach, and have this guy be my GM with me, because I know he's going to be on the same page with me, and that's not something that he's had. So, dude,
so when do you hire the next McVay or O'Connell? We went over this last week, and I really need to emphasize this. There are a few, and if you want to talk about McVay or O'Connell, there are 8 to 10 head coaching candidacies or availabilities every single year. In the last 6 coaching cycles, so let's do that basic math, 8 to 10, let's average it out to 9. And over the last 6 years, we're talking about 54 head coaching opportunities. You have McVay, O'Connell, LaFleur, Stefanski. 4 out of 58 actually worked out as that head coaching. Out of that 54, 4 out of 54, 54 out of 54 that have worked out in that genius. Mike McDaniels is on the hot seat, J2K. Like, you could say what you want about Mike McDaniels.
Whatever. Even
let's give him that 5 out of 54. These are such rare shots. And you want to take the shot, I can't disagree with you, and I can't argue with your football mentality. You want to go for the gusto. You want to go for the 13-win McVay, O'Connell. That's what you want. I don't think that this is a situation for the Bears where they can afford to take that luxury. Caleb Williams and a fuckload of talent on this team, and you have no idea what Ben Johnson can do with it. I know what Mike Vrabel can do with it, and that's to get you to 9 to fucking 11 wins for the next 4 years, maybe more.
Even in this tough division. Even in this tough division.
Conservative as fuck with that assumption. That's a QB issue. You don't have that QB issue here. Caleb Williams is good. He could do fine with Mike Vrabel. He could do fine. If it's a QB issue thing, then he could do just as good with Mike Vrabel and his offensive coordinator as he could with Ben Johnson. But I have no idea what Ben Johnson will do as a head coach.
Mike Vrabel would have the best quarterback he's ever had in his head coaching career here. Correct. And so that's why, I
named Matt LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell, Sean McVay, and Kevin Stefanski. And you gave me Mike McDaniel. That's 5 out of 54 on average per year, and we're talking about a 6 to 7 year coaching cycle. Like, Matt LaFleur was hired 4 or 5 years ago. There's 50 coaches that fail every year. I have no doubt that Mike Vrabel will not fail. He might not do exactly what you expect him to, but he's not going to be a failure.
But J2K said it too. Okay, so he's the safe pick. He gets you to 8-9 wins. Guys, we know what this league is like. I mean, you look at the season we just had. It comes down to one or two plays sometimes to get a win or two. So, like, if our floor is 8 or 9 wins, I'm way more confident in being able to fix a couple things and get something right instead
You get
of
to 12. Yeah.
instead of being where we're at and asking for this complete turnaround. That's, I don't know, that might not be as consistent. To take a bigger risk for a bigger reward, well, that's great and all, but at the end of the day, even a guy like Kyle Shanahan, who is a great play caller and everything like that, dude, they're losing to Patrick Mahomes, right? So, like, the talent is what's going to do it at the end of the day. It is. And so,
Just
like,
say the ceiling is 9-8 with Mike Vrabel. He got to 12 wins with Ryan Tannehill.
right.
Ceiling 9-8 with this team and Caleb Williams when he got to 12 wins with Ryan Tannehill. How is that his ceiling?
I mean, the fact that we were 4-2 with Matt Eberflus this year even says a lot. Like, yeah, dude, like I said, I do think there's still enough talent here left over to where so we kind of brought this up earlier in the show too. If you go a certain route, then there's too many holes to fix. If you could just get the effort from these guys back to 100%, right, and create a stable environment for them, then you'll some of these holes, like Tyreek Stevenson, may not be a detriment anymore. He may be a piece that you could use properly in the right situations instead of a guy that you lean on and fails you. Like, it lays out the picture a lot more clearer too. You know what I mean? Whereas if you come in here and try and get cute and it fails early and you kind of lose the effort and the hope of this locker room again, you'll be left in a situation where you totally have to flip this roster.
Oh, rebuild. Caleb is gone and you're rebuilding.
Yes, and you want to avoid that at all costs. The focus now is you need to do everything possible to make Caleb work in a certain timeline. And yeah, that starts with, like I said, just getting to a respectable level on all three phases of the football team. Like, I talked to my buddy Dan, and I was like, who would your favorite candidate be? And he's like, I know they're not interviewing him. He's like, I'd take Dave Taub because I know he's a real coach. He's like, I don't care that he's special teams, whatever. Like, that guy has shown for decades that he can do his part and, like, he can coach a team. You know what I mean? And so, like, you look at a guy like John Harbaugh in the Ravens. He was a special teams coach. That guy's a damn good head coach. One of the best. He catered an entire offensive style to Lamar Jackson, who they even passed on once. Everybody passed on because nobody wanted to do that. They went in, put in the legwork, made an offense specific towards him. It's not about having a cute play caller at that point. It's just about knowing the ins and outs of the NFL, knowing who you have, knowing your players, knowing your talent, and adapting to them. And that takes a lot of experience in this league, and I know Vrabel has it. So, yeah, safest choice, sure, I'll take the safest choice because I think that's what's going to give us the best chance to make Caleb Williams succeed.
Yeah, I'm so hard and fast on where this franchise needs to go. It's not even funny, and it's one of those obvious things where if I think you can even honestly just like predict it in the tea leaves, man. If the Bears are so convinced that Ben Johnson is the savior, it's almost to the point where I've seen this dance before, right? I've seen this work on the Bears before. Like, okay, Matt Nagy was an amazing play caller for Patrick Mahomes for a week or two, and he looked amazing. And
Mark Trestman was so smart.
And so innovative in the Canadian Football League and this and that. This is almost the same thing. I get it. Ben Johnson has more NFL experience, but I've never seen Ben Johnson work with a subpar roster. I've never seen Ben Johnson work with a subpar offensive line or a lack of talent in the NFL. I've never seen Ben Johnson overcome adversity. I've seen Mike Vrabel do all of those things.
Meanwhile, John Fox came in here, and during 3 lame duck years, while they were rebuilding a locker room, Adam Gase got a head coaching job. Name me the last Bears offensive coordinator that went off and got a head coaching job. That's what I'm saying. Like, dude, you just need structure here. You need this is a joke right now. And that's the title of the show, the joke of the NFC North. And you don't want to be that, man. You don't want to be the clowns. And I know Mike Vrabel would not allow that, right? So, yeah, it's step by step, man. And unfortunately, we're in the position that we're in. And therefore, the best possible route is that route. Like, we just need, man, David, I love the fact that you brought up in last week's episode. You're like, in this division, there's one coach out there that I know would not be intimidated by the Packers, the Lions, or the Vikings. And that's Mike Vrabel, period. Dude, guys, this is, it's unfortunately where we're at. I would love to be able to be in a position where we can sit here and take risks and things like that, but we already did that with Caleb Williams. And now we're in a position where we just have to make that work. That is the most important piece, period. And you know what's not going to work? Getting sacked multiple times throughout the year, 7 times, 9 times, having 5+ sack games. It's not going to work for anybody. If Vrabel comes in here and goes, Caleb, you're throwing the ball 20 to 25 times. We're running the ball. We're just establishing time of possession, playing keep away, and you just got to be clutch. Man, that'll do wonders for the kid. You'll take so much pressure off his shoulders, and you'll put him in a position where he's not getting beat to hell, giving all his effort to just lose 9 straight games in a row. Like, you'll find different ways to win. You'll get more wins on the season. And then once you build that structure and stability, dude, there will be opportunities to sit there and spike with it and get better. But like right now, we're nowhere near that, right? Dude, look at the other teams in this division. Like you said, the Packers are 10 wins, third. 10 wins, and they're in third place. And we still have 2 weeks to go.
If you're planning for the future, if you're planning for 5 years ahead, when those 2-3 teams fall off, that's fine. You want to go Ben Johnson, you're like, hey, it's a 10-year project, and let me double down on this risk. Oh, J2K meant Josh McCown, not Cade McNown. Yeah, if you want to double down on the risk, man, go for it. Like, that's all I can say. I mean, I can't argue with your logic. I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. You want to risk it. You want to double down. You have a fucking 10 and an ace in poker or a blackjack, and you want to fucking double down. You want to split them. Go for it. Fuck it. I am much more comfortable taking the net profit. And right now, a net profit is Mike Vrabel. Like, there's a certain level of, once you've established yourself as an NFL franchise that can actually compete with Mike Vrabel, and you're like, you know what, Mike Vrabel has shown us the way. He's shown us that what it looks like to be an 8-9 win team, and we're stuck there for a while. Great. Let's go risk it for the fucking 11, 12, 13 win head coach. Great. It's the equivalent of getting Dan Campbell, guys. I don't understand why this is so obtuse to some people. Dan Campbell is not the best. Even then, he's not an offensive innovator. Jared Goff is showing him what Ben Johnson called on the Stumblerooski. Fucking Dan Campbell had no idea what was going on.
Shawshank Redemption is one of my favorite movies. And the jail warden gets so fucking offended when he calls him obtuse. It's like, what? What did you say?
That was my reference. Why are people being so obtuse? Excuse me? Yeah. No.
4 weeks in the hole.
Yeah. I'll take 4 weeks in the hole for Mike Vrabel right now. I get it. I just got that. I'll take 4 weeks in a hole for Mike Vrabel. Dude, I can't. I mean, you need to just get to a level of respectability right now. If you're in the camp like J2K is, double down and fuck it. If it works, you might be at the top. If it doesn't, you're a 2 or 1 win team
for a long time.
And then fine, go for it. You want to be a 5-win team for the next 10 years because you took that risk with Ben Johnson and you had no idea what you were doing? Great. I can't argue with your logic. I understand it even. I can
I do
even
too.
justify it. But I can't get there with you. I need to be respectable again. This is where we differentiate.
And it's all because we have a number 1 overall pick quarterback who, despite all odds throughout the season, has still been the only real true bright spot on this team this year. Like I said, who's the Bears best player on the Bears? Caleb. Right? So because of that alone is why I have this opinion, right? If we were in a different situation, I might think differently, right? Like if we had passed on Caleb, signed Justin to a 5th-year option, whatever, this and that. Like if we were in a different situation where we were looking to maybe even draft a guy or something, then I might entertain different things a little bit more. Right now, I know what we have in the quarterback, and it's something that we haven't had, and I know we're ruining it. I know we've already spent a year ruining it, and I can't do that anymore. Give me the safe pick. Give me Vrabel. Let's get this thing right, and then let's let the talent do what they're supposed to do. Let's let the players go out there and win the games for us. Make it easy for them, right? That's the only thing. Don't make this impossible like they've had to deal with, dude. You have my friend, I saw him the other day. He told me there's been 2 poisons in this locker room all year. And it's been Keenan Allen and
Gerald Everett?
No, the tight end, Mercedes Lewis.
Yeah.
And I go, funny, the 2 most experienced guys are telling you this is trash.
Yeah.
To the point where they're telling everybody this is trash. Why? Because they know better.
Because they've seen it. Yeah.
Because they know better, right? Like, guys.
And we could do this next episode, by the way. But like,
we were worried about if we talk for an hour today. So
yeah, I know. I mean, I'm ready to go because this is just more of the same.
me too.
Like all I want for Christmas is for the Bears to realize they don't know what the fuck they're doing, because we can get into this later. I know Mike Vrabel, if he has some GM input or some player personnel input, it's because he knows what he's doing. If you're asking that of Ben Johnson, who's his GM? Are you keeping Ryan Poles with Ben Johnson? Does Ben Johnson know what he's looking for in players? Does Ben Johnson know what to look for? Has Ben Johnson ever been asked to look for players or personnel? Has
J2K,
Ben Johnson
I just want to say the cute play call thing. Like, okay, it's 4th and 1. The Patriots with Tom Brady. What are they doing? Quarterback sneak. And they're getting the yard every time. Right? And so that's what I mean by cute play calling. You don't have to play chess if you could just play checkers, man. Right? Like last year with the Eagles, 4th and 1. What are they doing? Tush push. They're getting it. You know what I mean? Like, it starts with that, and we don't have that. So to get replace the word cute with creative. How about that? Replace the word cute with creative play calling. Like, we don't need that yet. I don't care.
We're not anywhere near there yet.
Nowhere. Yeah, we just need to go out there and play football.
We've been calling draws and screens and fucking fullback dives on 4th down. I want to call 3 straight run plays.
For real. And, it just is what it is. So, like I said, I don't need to gamble more. That's why we have that opinion that we have. Guys, thank you so much tonight for all your time, for participating in the chat. We had a lot of participation, which is awesome. We'd be on here ranting and babbling regardless. But Prometheus, J2K, Flex Diggs, Daniel Jeffries, we've had some new people in the chat kind of pop in here and there too and whatnot, but Dennis Moody, Flex Diggs, guys, we appreciate all you. We appreciate all your comments. Agree, disagree. Like David said, if you disagree strongly, come on with us, man. We'd love to have you guys on. Just reach out to me. Like, I don't care. I love talking football and I love debating and I love going back and forth. And yeah, that's what makes us all fans. So like I said, we were worried about not even doing a full hour today. And here we are in an hour and a half, just still doing it and getting passionate about it. Right. So It's
Yeah.
funny, man. So, yeah, J2K, we appreciate you too as well, always. And yeah, I appreciate the debate too. David, I gotta say, like J2K, when I did show with him last time, he laid out a real good case for Brian Flores. To where even I was like, like you know what I mean? Like
I don't hate it.
no,
I've been
exactly.
Brian Flores is fine. I
For me,
worry about
I'm
his
a mass guy. Like I want the best chances of success. And I think the best chance of getting success is going to be with Mike Vrabel. But like, yeah, Ben Johnson could go off and be a damn good coach. I don't know that though. You know, I've seen Mike Vrabel be at least a decent head coach. So yeah, thank you guys so
Absolutely.
much.
Happy
Happy holidays.
everybody.
Merry
It's always
Christmas,
fun to talk
everybody.
about this stuff.
Let's survive through the Seahawks game. Maybe we'll win this one.
Yeah,
It
I
might
don't
be
think
the
so.
only one left to get the 5 wins, but if not, it is what it is. We'll
Yep.
focus more on draft and off season moving forward. So good night, everybody. Thank you so much.